And we're back, like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your, Wednesday evening here with me in New York. But once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. Change the backdrop, keeping it as visually interesting as I possibly can. But today marks 75th birthday for a Nepo baby. Nepo baby who was the most talented member of his family, dare I say. A brilliant actor, Oscar winner, a fantastic musician, cancer survivor, humanitarian, very, very charitable with his money, just an all-around, what we like to say, all-around mensch. Jeff Bridges turned 75 today. And ironically, for many boomers, for many members of Generation X, and somehow some millennials, the role that he is most closely identified with is Jeff Lebowski from the Coen brothers. Cult classic. I don't even think it's that good. It completely missed me. I saw it in theaters and I had, ironically, the same reaction as Siskel and Ebert. We're both huge fans of the Coen brothers, but I think that Ebert might have given it a marginal thumbs up and Siskel thumbs down. And they both had Fargo as the best film of 1996. I kind of reacted the way they did. I like the movie. I don't love it. It has all the quotable lines. And, you know, the joke is, if you disagree with what I'm saying about The Big Lebowski, well, that's just like, you know, your opinion, man. But the dude abides. And when I think of Jeff Bridges, the first movie I think of is Starman. And the next movie I think of is my favorite film with him overall, which sadly is my favorite film with Robin Williams, The Fisher King. But we can get to that. I'm kind of joking and kind of not joking as far as Bridges being a Nepo baby. In his case, he got into the business because his father, Lloyd, was a big star. And you could say the same about Laura Dern. Both of her parents were stars in Bruce Dern and Diane Ladd. It's the nature of the business, how it works, or how it's just the way that it goes. And I don't see any problem with it. In the case of Jeff Bridges, in the case of Michael Douglas, for crying out loud. Michael Douglas ended up being a bigger star, having a bigger career even than his old man, who was a huge star in Kirk Douglas. And people get carried away with this kind of stuff. But Jeff Bridges hit the first major role in a big film, a kind of historical movie, was Peter Bogdanovich's The Last Picture Show, which came out in 1971. And I don't think you could consider him the lead. I think that Timothy Bottom's character is nominally the lead, and a very young Sybil Shepherd, kind of the female lead, if you will. Cloris Leachman, great cast, Ben Johnson. I don't love that movie. I get and I appreciate what Bogdanovich was going for, and it's not one of my favorite performances by Jeff Bridges. And I don't know, Timothy Bottom's character just doesn't resonate. And I saw the sequel, the 30 years later. Was it Larry McMurtry? I don't even know if it was Larry McMurtry, but Texasville, the movie was not good. It didn't work. Last Picture Show I don't love, but there is the occasional movie where an actor or actress who is not really that critical to the story ends up becoming a big star. And what I'm thinking specifically of is a movie from 1988, which is technically stars Justine Bateman, who had been a TV star on Family Ties, and Liam Neeson, who was on the rise big time back then. And it's a story of these four young women who are in a band, and Justine is the lead singer. And the film is not entirely successful, but it's interesting because one of the members of the band is played by Julia Roberts. And her role is limited, but you can see in that movie, she's got something. Like, she didn't just happen to luck into her career in the same way that Reese Witherspoon in her film debut in Man on the Moon, not Man in the Moon, not the Jim Carrey. But in that film, in Reese's film debut, if you go back and watch it, you say, oh yeah, she definitely had, whatever the it is, she had it in spades. Jeff Bridges, in The Last Picture Show, he has a way a kind of almost a laconic way of engaging the camera, of not showing that much emotion for huge stretches of the film, marked him as a distinctive young talent. And his career did take off after that. And it's been said that in the long and storied career of Clint Eastwood, it is almost impossible to share the screen with him and people who watching the movie even realize you're there. There are certain actors that when they were on screen, without saying a word, John Wayne, the joke was when he was with Jeffrey Hunter in The Searchers, Jeffrey Hunter said, I'm in almost every scene with him and people don't even remember I'm in this fucking movie. So Jeff Bridges, 1974, so, shot about 2.5 years after Last Picture Show, made a movie with Clint Eastwood. Not one of Clint's most well-remembered films, and certainly not one of Jeff's most well-remembered roles, except for the fact that he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. And there were a lot of people saying, hey, this is an interesting choice. Sometimes, the Academy Award, it's bullshit, it's pie. Yeah, I know. But sometimes there are nominations that take us by surprise. Johnny Depp being nominated for Pirates of the Caribbean 2003 jumps to mind. Why am I drawing a blank? Oh, I'm sorry. Angela Bassett being nominated for the Black Panther sequel. A lot of people thought she could win supporting actress. Like, that was a bit of a surprise. But Jeff Bridges, in a movie called Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, great name, with Clint Eastwood. They basically play a couple of con artists, more or less, thieves, doing small-time shit. Jeff Bridges, still very young. What was he, 24, 25? He's on screen with Clint. He walks away with the movie. When I tell you that has never happened in any other film, John Malkovich comes closest in the Line of Fire. But Clint has moments of incredible strength and some of the finest film acting he ever did. Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, though. Think about Clint. You wonder what he was going through when he realized his co-star, just a fucking kid, gets nominated. What about me? I'm technically the star of the film. But he showed himself, Jeff Bridges, as somebody who, you could tell the family resemblance with his brother Beau, that you could tell they're brothers. And a father, the shape of the face is a little bit, more than a little bit. You could tell it's his son. He marked himself, though, as somebody willing to do different things and take on different roles than expected. His career didn't evolve in a conventional way. And even somebody like, let's say, a Brad Pitt or a Will Smith, where they tried to keep it interesting by not, hate to drag the late, great Burt Reynolds, but where Burt Reynolds kept making the same kind of movie again and again. Guys like Will and Brad, they attempted different things, made some interesting choices. Robin Williams, he said, when something doesn't work out, don't say it was a bad idea. Just say it was an interesting choice. Bridges made some very interesting choices, and some of them paid off. He did a movie with Bob Rafelson, who had famously directed Jack, that would be Nicholson, in 5 Easy Pieces. He did a film called Stay Hungry with a young champion bodybuilder named Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, the irony in that instance, and if you want to look at it historically, Arnold Schwarzenegger is older than Jeff Bridges. But in that movie, Jeff was already an established, Oscar nominee, his father, all of that, his brother's in the business. And Arnold was just this kid with a very heavy accent. And he was trying to break into the movie business. And I think he won a Golden Globe for Best Newcomer. And that movie was critical because it showed that Arnold was not just, big muscle head with the accent, but he took the time, and Rafelson really worked well with him to try to get him to craft an actual performance. I'm sure they had conversations like, I don't think anybody really believed he was going to become the biggest movie star in the world, but he would always talk well of Jeff Bridges. And then Jeff Bridges, in later years, was known for his physique for The Big Lebowski, where he purposely sort of grew a gut. But he was somebody who became a very health conscious and kind of fitness-minded individual. You look at certain roles where he's just dialed in, like American Heart. He looks like he's got 16-inch arms, and he is cut. But again, me being aware of that movie when I'm 20, I see Jeff Bridges as a very kind of a much older guy. He's like 45 or 46. I mean, can we be serious now that we have the perspective of age here? Yeah, he's really getting up there. Yeah, okay, whatever, so am I. But when I think of his career, I think of the different levels that he reaches. And if I were naming, let's say my top five, because usually that's the easiest way to do this sort of thing when you're remembering somebody, when you're celebrating someone whose career you followed and really like. In film school, they call this the great man approach because you don't have unlimited amounts of time in class. So you often learn about the most important filmmakers in a certain geographical area during a certain time period, a great man theory. If you're going to be talking about cinema in post-World War II Japan, you're going to learn about Mizoguchi, you're going to learn about Ozu, you might learn about Kurosawa. But if you want to talk about Jeff Bridges, my thoughts immediately turn to my favorite films starring him. And I will, not in any order, Fisher King, Starman. I love the first Iron Man. I wouldn't put Thunderbolt and Lightfoot up there. But the movie that he did with Peter Weir in 1993, Fearless, I don't know how he didn't get a Best Actor nomination, but he didn't get a Best Actor nomination. But my first thought of him is Starman, where he did get a Best Actor nomination in answer to a trivia question, a ridiculous trivia question. The first actor ever nominated for Best Actor for playing an alien. But if, for example, we compare what he does, let's just say The Big Lebowski, we'll make believe it's in my top five. It is a broadly comedic, rollicking, shambling, staggering wreck of a performance. Yeah, there are moments of theoretical seriousness. Fargo is a black comedy. There are moments where we're screaming with laughter, but that is a much more serious film. Even though they both have a kidnapping plot, it's not really the same kind of film. But you compare what Bridges does, for example, in The Big Lebowski. There are scenes in Thunderbolt and Lightfoot where he is actually in drag. He has to pretend to be Clint's character's girlfriend. Try to imagine, they had a lot of problems with it back then. That, should we really do this? Clint said, fuck it, let's go for it. And Jeff was willing to. That probably is what got him the supporting actor nomination, that he was willing to go the extra mile and a half. In Starman, his speech patterns are entirely different because he's playing an alien who is not entirely comfortable in human skin. He's an alien-looking alien. This is not a humanoid alien who kind of shifts his form slightly. It's an incredible performance. It's unlike any other, forget his career. I struggle to think of any other performance by an actor that's in the same ballpark. I mean, for reference, a movie that he did with Kevin Spacey, K-Pax. Spacey plays, we think he's an alien. We're not sure. That movie was not very good. It was completely fucked up. But Spacey doesn't even attempt what Bridges did. He just basically delivers his lines, maybe slightly different cadence, slightly different canter. My favorite film, though, with him is The Fisher King. And it is one of his sort of broadest performances because there are these moments of humor, but ultimately it is a serious and sad story, despite the fact that his co-star is Robin Williams. And when people think of Robin's career, if you ask the question, which movie, character, and film do you think was the closest to how Robin Williams felt in a given day? It's The Fisher King. Because the character he plays in the film, see, technically it's Jeff's movie. Everything is filtered through his perception in that film. It's kind of like with Shawshank, where we think that Andy is the lead, he has the most screen time, but it's filtered through Red's perception. And then you get into, well, how much of this is supposed to have really happened and how much of this is Red's memory, because it is a voiceover. You could drive yourself crazy looking into that kind of stuff. But Robin's character is brilliant, but he is badly damaged. He has suffered unspeakable loss and tragedy. And Jeff Bridges' character of Jack Cates is a shock jock. He's basically a Howard Stern when Stern was on terrestrial radio, but he's a nastier guy. He pays even less heed to potentially deranged callers asking questions and not really answering them in the most responsible sort of way. So he feels responsible, even though he doesn't want to get involved with this guy, Parry. It's not really his name. But he gets involved with this guy because despite the fact that this character is a hard-charging, super successful radio host who has been laid low by circumstances, again, related to the tragedy that I just described, there's something in him. There's goodness in him. This is not an alien who is intrinsically kind and decent, trying to reconnect with his own people. Or Big Lebowski, a guy who just wants to get through the day and smoke as much weed and drink as many White Russians as possible. And whatever goals he kind of starts the day with, well, yeah, that rug really tied the room together. This aggression will not stand. He usually is basically in a drug-induced, alcohol-induced haze by the end of the day. In The Fisher King, there is a focus to the performance. And, everyone's vain and everyone wants to, I would imagine, in that business, believe that they're the best or what they do is better. And I feel like Robin Williams brought out the best in Jeff Bridges in that film. And he has the moments where the two guys are fucking around and there's a lot of laughter in the movie, but there are tears and there are moments that really gut you. And the concept seems so absurd. Search for the Holy Grail. I mean, Indiana Jones had done that 2 years earlier. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. They're looking for the Holy Grail. Well, they're kind of doing the same thing in The Fisher King. And even though Jeff didn't get Oscar nomination, as Robin did, a lot of people thought that he was going to win. And Mercedes Ruehl, who plays Jeff Bridges' girlfriend, who loves him and he loves her, but is he ever going to actually be able to say those words when they might make a difference? Your guess is as good as mine. But his performance is so strong in The Fisher King. I feel like he elevated his co-stars rather than the other way around. But sometimes, I wouldn't even say that in Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, Clint, I'm sure it helped having him around. But I don't think that Clint necessarily elevated Jeff. I think that he just took a role that probably didn't look that exciting on the page, and he knocked it out of the park. Fisher King is an incredible film. It was tied for the best screenplay I've ever read, along with Jacob's Ladder. Richard LaGravenais's screenplay for The Fisher King is it's beyond exemplary. It's like a 10.1 out of 10. It's so good, and the movie is real close. The movie's at least a 9 out of 10. And it's very difficult to do justice. If you just read Richard LaGravenais's script, you would say to yourself, this is fucking incredible. This is incredible. But I don't know how they could possibly make this. Well, Terry Gilliam, ever the renegade, he couldn't do the Don Quixote movie with Johnny Depp. He wasted how many years? But earlier, when he was able to get things together for The Fisher King, they crushed it. Fearless is another movie where a co-star of Jeff Bridges got the accolades. And I feel like it was a point in his career where he had been so good in so many movies. I mean, Fabulous Baker Boys, he's fantastic. I don't love that movie. It's Michelle Pfeiffer's movie. She was just dynamite, absolute dynamite. And, there were critics at the time, Roger Ebert and Denby, where they were trying to be professional in their reviews of that film, but they just couldn't not at least point out how spectacularly hot Michelle Pfeiffer is, particularly when she's kind of wearing a miniskirt slinking across a piano. And I don't know if it was Ebert or Rex. It might have been Rex Reed. He said, all I knew that whatever it was that she was doing, I didn't want her to stop. That's great moments in film criticism. Maybe you could have phrased it a little more delicately, but yeah, now we know why you had so much fun at the movies. Thanks for the confession there. Fearless, Peter Weir film, and in Weir's incredible career, even though he hasn't made a ton of movies, he's like a slightly busier Terrence Malick. When you think about The Truman Show, Year of Living Dangerously, Picnic at Hanging Rock. Fearless is a very unusual film. It's the kind of movie, and this is not a criticism, this is an observation. It's the kind of movie where if you read the description, it doesn't immediately become apparent, what is this movie about? And I like that, because if you go in not knowing what it's about, I think the movie is going to work on you even better. But for purposes of this, it deals with a guy who has a whole host of weird allergies, and issues. And he seems somewhat detached. It's a cliche, but he's somewhat detached. And he survives a plane crash. And that's basically the movie. And Rosie Perez got a supporting actress nomination. There were a lot of people that thought that she was going to win. Anna Paquin ended up winning for The Piano. That was an enormous upset. I mean, that was crazy. She was 10, 11 years old. And I love Anna Paquin. I know The Piano is a great film, but I didn't love the movie as much as a lot of other people. There were some people saying it's better than Schindler's List. No. It's better than The Age of Innocence. No, it's not. It's not better than In the Line of Fire either. It's not better than The Remains of the Day. It's not better than Shadowlands. Hell, it's not even better than Searching for Bobby Fischer, which is kind of one of the slept-on incredible movies of the decade. But Jeff, in Fearless, again, strikes out in a different direction. He has the ability to seem like a completely different actor by calibrating a little bit differently, by pausing differently, by the control that he has of his face. And the movie Fearless, for huge chunks of it, it's not a story of action and activity and plot movements and Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. It's a story of a guy's journey. And that is not immediately apparent when we start the film. Where does he start? Where does he go? Where will he end up? And there is something to be said for overcoming one's fears. But then you ask the question, when are you just acting like you don't give a fuck about your life? When are you overcoming fear? Like, for example, if you're afraid to fly, we know the statistics are pretty good that if you go up in a plane, you're going to be fine. You're way more likely, I don't even know how many times more likely to die in a traffic accident, statistically speaking. It's not even close. As Superman tells Lois Lane in Superman 1978, statistically speaking, it's still the safest form of travel. If you are allergic, very allergic, for example, to peanuts or strawberries, is that something that you should take a crack at? Is that overcoming fear? Well, what if I die? Well, let's just see. Movie gets into stuff like that. It's very uncomfortable because we're not expecting it. It's not something that you normally would see in a movie. But because of the way that his character is relating to the other characters, Isabella Rossellini, of course, from Blue Velvet, she's great. Oh, and she had been in Death Becomes Her, a movie I don't like. I know I'm supposed to like. That's a Gen X. It's one of our movies. Do not like it. 1.5 stars out of 4. I hated Bruce's character. I hated Goldie's character. I hated Meryl's character. I hated everybody. Well, that was the point. That's fine. I hated everybody. I didn't like the movie. You know, as my sister would say, no, thank you. I'm all set here. Fearless, though, builds to a surprisingly emotional ending. No spoilers. But it's just because the movie seems to be meandering to nowhere in particular, but then you realize this is Peter Weir. There is nothing in his entire filmography that suggests, well, maybe except Picnic at Hanging Rock, but that suggests that there is not going to be an emotional wallop in the final 5 minutes. And the movie Fearless does have it. He wasn't nominated. What are you going to do? That's just the nature of the business. But even later, in 1999, he did a film which was written by a guy that I went to NYU with, named Aaron Kruger. I don't know that I met him. I think we were in a class together, but I don't remember that. Oh, yeah, I remember. I could make up a story, but I don't know that I ever actually met him. He also wrote Reindeer Games, the film with Gary Sinise, Charlize Theron, and Ben Affleck that is kind of a cult film. Again, my generation, the film's 25 years old now. A lot of people love that. Didn't work for me. But he made a movie with Tim Robbins called Arlington Road. And it was another different, distinctive kind of a performance where in that movie, he plays an FBI agent. And an FBI agent who unfortunately was involved in a David Koresh Waco style fuck up where more people died than should have died. And he still feels responsible for it because there was a raid and it didn't go according to Hoyle. And Arlington Road is another very nervy, unsettling film. It's technically a suspense thriller. There's moments of tremendous excitement, but the Tim Robbins character is so fucking creepy. It's like you know that he's up to no, we don't know what he's doing, but something is rotten in the state of Denmark. And Robbins' character is so ingenious that we really don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's not doing anything. Maybe he's just a troll who likes to fuck with people. We don't know. It's one of Robbins' best performances. You know, I joke around. His best performance in any movie without the word redemption or Shawshank is Jacob's Ladder. But man, Arlington Road, Tim Robbins fucking kills it. And he kind of almost outshines Jeff. But what Jeff is able to do in that film in particular is not so much show off a different side, but he's willing to play a hero who might be a little bit loco from his prior experiences, a little bit of a James Stewart in Vertigo, where you say, are we still supposed to root for this guy? He's fucking crazy. You don't necessarily get that far in Arlington Road, but there are some twists in the final third that you don't see coming and won't possibly be able to guess. Very, very good movie. Little bit, as I say, nervous and unsettling. It's a kind of angsty movie. Another great 90s thriller. Now, the last film I want to talk about is a movie that was one of my father's favorites, and not the kind of film I would have expected Alan Philip Cohen, the biggest movie fan I've ever known, to have loved. But it's the film Hell or High Water with Ben Foster and Chris Pine playing brothers who, bizarrely, because this is not the 19th century and Jesse James, they go on a bank robbery spree. And Jeff plays a Texas Ranger, like a marshal, trying to figure out what's going on. What are these boys doing? This doesn't make any sense. And the story goes from there. Chris Pine is fantastic. He's just great. And the movie plays fair. We don't know why they're robbing the banks. And Jeff Bridges' character, although he'd want to know, but he just has to stop them. It doesn't matter if their intentions are not entirely criminal or if there is a philosophical, conceptual, larger picture argument to be made. Listen, people are getting hurt. I got to stop these sons of bitches. I understand that, okay, maybe they're not just brutal killers. This is not Bonnie and Clyde, although they might have started with not terrible intentions. But Jeff's performance, again, he does an accent that could have backfired, but it works. I think he's supposed to even be playing a little bit older than he was at the time of filming. He does a thing with his mouth that would be befitting of a man who is older than him. It is a great performance. And Ben Foster, I think, is probably considered to be a finer actor than Chris Pine, but I think Chris Pine is fantastic in Hell or High Water. My dad must have watched it 6 times. And it's not the kind of movie that you would expect would have such a high rewatchability factor, but Dad really got a kick out of, and I won't spoil it, why the young men, the 2 brothers, Ben and Chris's character, why they go on the bank robbery spree. Dad thought it was a brilliant twist. He never would have in a million years figured out, oh, that's why they're doing it. Tip of the cap. And Jeff was stricken with cancer. I think it was right around this time in 2020. I believe it was actually non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, I think. Please forgive me if I got that wrong. I'm sorry. But he is in remission, and he has a TV show, The Old Man. He continues to work, and he continues to give so much of himself to various worthwhile charities. Both he and his brother have done that. And just seems like a really good guy. And it's so easy to drag celebrities and, oh, did he know Diddy? You know, we could start doing that. I don't think he did, but, you know, people get, oh, well, this guy sucks because he knew this guy. But my perception of Jeff Bridges is that he works hard when he's on set, but he tries to do as much as he can to help other people who are less fortunate than he is. And he takes it very seriously. And I respect that. And he's one hell of an actor. And he has been a great movie star since the 70s. So happy 75th birthday to the one and only Oscar winner, humanitarian, author, musician, Jeff Bridges. This has been episode 374 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your happy hump day, hopefully evening, with me here in New York. If you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then, peace.